Hello, everyone. This is your host, Cobra Number One, and you are listening to the Barbershop here on CobrasInAction.org and the Black Talk Radio Network, exposing racism, white supremacy for exactly what it is so that you and your loved ones can navigate this disgusting system. The purpose of this podcast is to eliminate all confusion in regards to racism and what it is, so that those who are classified as Black are no longer confused. We broadcast weekly. We try to get the show on Wednesdays from 5 to 6 p.m., but sometimes we get it out on Thursday from 5 to 6 p.m. right here on CobrasInAction.org and the Black Talk Radio Network. So inform any Black person you know that you think may be remotely interested in countering racism of what we're doing. Spread the word. We find this show to be necessary because before a problem can be solved, it has to be identified and understood. And too many Black people do not understand racism. Visit us at CobrasInAction.org, a website dedicated to countering racism and replacing it with justice. Because too many Black people remain confused about racism, we created this site. Not only do we articulate precisely what racism is, but we also give specifics on how to counter it. Click on the menu tab and listen to archives of the Barbershop. Read articles on racism and strategies and tactics on how to counter racism. And listen to the radio network, Cobra Radio, the most dangerous radio network in the world. Once you're on the site, please like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter, YouTube, and SoundCloud. We're always publishing content to all of our social media sites, articles, videos, and music, so please follow. I love to hear comments from you guys, and yes, I do respond. Please email me at cobra.org@mail.com or get at me on Twitter. My handle is @Cobra_org. Also, let's start the conversation on Twitter. #racism is white supremacy. We have 2 new podcasts, Flex Talk, a podcast dedicated to improving the physical, mental, and spiritual health of Black people, and Urugu, an analysis of white people. We do Flex Talk on Wednesdays from 11 to 2 p.m., and Urugu is not on a set schedule, but just go to CobrasInAction.org, click the menu tab, then click on podcasts to listen to any of the shows. We're also on iTunes. Just search Cobra Podcasts and subscribe. Today, I want to continue the conversation from last week on Black culture, focusing on things Black people can do in the area of activity known as sex to counter racism, white supremacy. Be right back.
Well, in the system of white supremacy, anything that non-white people do nowadays in 2016 that is non-constructive and has a constructive effect on the behavior and the, you might say, the welfare, the well-being of non-white people, the white supremacists are not in favor of it. Otherwise, how are you going to have white supremacy if you're going to have Black people oriented, thinking about, having a vision of, working toward, doing things that are of constructive value? And this includes the third area of activity. You don't want any Black entertainment to be constructive. You want it to be non-constructive. You want black people to be doing things that don't build up anything. Just everything falling down, everything deteriorated. I mean, you want black people to glorify killing each other, all right? You know, in your entertainment. I mean, you know, if you're going to have an assembly of black people somewhere to get, where they agree to all get together and whatnot, you got to have some gunfire there. You got to have some bodies dropping. You got to have people fleeing for their lives and whatnot after they come together. All right? That's what they came together for. Everybody understands when you get a bunch of black people together, it's going to be something evil that's going to happen. Otherwise, if it's not evil happening, what are we together for? That's got to be a part of black culture. I mean, hey, terrible things are going to happen. I mean, whether it's a soccer game, I mean, you know, and somewhere along the line, people are going to start punching each other out, kicking each other, shooting maybe, or something like that, or whether it's any event, a big barbecue or something on the black side of town, and the white supremacists sit back and say, okay, you know how they're going to act. See, get all geared up to have with the riot gear and whatnot, because, you know, they are very destructive people, and they come together with the idea of being destructive. Mm-hmm. This is what they know. This is their habit. This is their culture. See? So we want to do away with that in the compensatory counter-racist era, where we should be dedicated to going with the rest of what we call the infinity. No more of that nonsense. And don't come together with that in mind, and don't even, you know, anything that looks like it's going in that direction, just don't participate in it. Don't go.
Right.
See, let's get down to the doing part. Just say, no. If I don't have a guarantee that this is going to be constructive.
I was an employer in Orlando, Florida. I put 300 people to work in the community. Not one black elected official. When that contract was lost, no one said, let's make sure we continue to keep, you know, black people working. Was I expecting them to do it? No. But it just doesn't happen. We fight, we take the easy issues. Let's talk about black-on-black crime. It's much easier for me to stand up there and talk about black-on-black crime rather than talking about police brutality. It's much easier to have a panel of inviting the police into the community to tell us how we need to behave better rather than holding the police accountable on Front Street. Almost a dozen women were raped here in Oklahoma City.
Talking about we need to build a better relationship with the police. How can black people build a relationship with the exact same entity that has been designed to oppress them and deny them their rights? The purpose of the police is to intimidate the oppressed against seeking justice. That's why the police are there. You can't build no relationship with the police. That's like asking a woman who's been raped to build a relationship with her rapist, or somebody who's been stolen from to build a relationship with the thief. That is crazy. You never saw nobody ask the European Jews to build a relationship with the Nazis, but they want black people to build a relationship with the police. And we said we're not doing that. We unapologetically African. We're going to stand up for what's right, and no Uncle Tom bootlicking Negro is going to make us take the line of least resistance, because that's gotten us nowhere in 50 years.
Stop doing anything that has show-off value. Stop trying to attract attention to yourself by showing off. Because once you get everybody's attention, what are you going to do with the attention that you got? That's a logical question. Remember, I keep saying all problems can be solved through the process of questions and answers.
Yes.
So you should ask yourself, why are you trying to get people's attention? And what are you going to do with the attention that you got once you get it? In other words, if I'm standing on a street corner and I say, hey, everybody look at my hairstyle. I want everybody, I mean, you know, get out of their cars. I mean, you know, park them somewhere and come back and take a look. I mean, this is me. I just got a new hairstyle. I want everybody to see my hairstyle. I mean, all this stuff that you all are doing, you're wasting your time. Come and look at me. Come and do something constructive in your life. Do something that makes sense for once in your Negro lives. Come and look at me, Neely Fuller. I'm standing on this corner, and I just got a new hairstyle that nobody in the world has ever had. So you need to learn from this. You need to straighten out your lives by looking at me and my hairstyle. Now, so the people come, and they assemble by the thousands, and they look at me and my new hairstyle, or my new tattoo, or my new angle that I use when I sag my pants. I am getting people's attention.
Yes.
So the question now is, now that I have everybody's attention, what is supposed to be what constructive result?
Okay.
I should be able to answer that question. How has this contributed to making a betterment of solving their problems for the rest of their lives?
Okay.
Victims Guaranteed Qualification, VGQ.
You got to. I'm here to tell you that the only way you're going to stop police brutality is you got to stand up and be brutal with this damn beast. You got to step to this cracker or it will never stop.
Welcome back to the show. I am your host, Cobra Number One, and you are listening to The Barbershop here on CobrasInAction.org and the Black Talk Radio Network. Like I said before, I love to hear comments from you guys, and I do respond. So again, please email me at cobra.org@mail.com or get at me on Twitter. My handle is @cobra_org, @cobra_org. Also, let's get this conversation started and let's keep it going. Hashtag racism is white supremacy. All right, before I get started, I just want to say that racism, white supremacy is real. It's not just some little cute phrase that I'm saying for shits and giggles. If you are not convinced of their superior position, just look up the 13th Amendment. See how slavery was never abolished and how it has morphed into what they call mass incarceration. But when you scratch beneath the surface, it becomes quite clear that it's just flat out slavery. Remember, most black men are in prison for nonviolent crimes and are put there by a criminal justice system controlled by white people, the ones that make all the rules and laws to continue exploiting niggers for labor. Only a people in a superior position can enslave another people, folks. Deal with it. Now, I am working on an introductory book to racism titled Racism is White Supremacy. The book describes racism within the concept of human activity, a concept developed by counter-racist thinker Neely Fuller. These areas, economics, education, entertainment, health, labor, law, religion, sex, and war, consist of activities all human beings consistently engage in, directly or indirectly, and provides a clear path towards understanding racism and how it works. I'm also working on an album to accompany the book, Racism is White Supremacy. I promise you're going to love this album if you love hard-hitting truth and good melodies. This album is unique. I don't plead for white people's attention or help. The evidence shows they are not interested. I don't pussyfoot around. I don't bullshit around the problem, which is white people. And I make that point very clear on the album. Now, if you're scared of white people, if you want to drink and bathe in their bath water, if you want to be held and cuddled like a little pet by white people, get the hell out of here right now. You get the hell out of here. You stop listening to this podcast and don't buy the album. Don't touch the album. I don't want your miserable ears listening. If that's going to be your attitude, you ain't ready. But if you want to hear racism articulated accurately, then stay put. Now, there are several books that need to be read by all black people for a complete understanding of racism. For an introduction to racism, I suggest my book, Racism is White Supremacy, which will be out in the marketplace very soon. Neely Fuller's book, The United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept, a textbook/workbook for thought, speech, and or action for Victims of Racism and White Supremacy. Yes, folks, that's one title. Definitely get that book. He talks about a code. We must develop a code of behavior. And this is what is going to counter racism for us and give us an opportunity to replace the system of racism with justice. For theory on why white people behave the way they do, I suggest Dr. Francis Chris Welsing's The ISIS Papers and Dr. Marimba Anai's Urugu. I do a podcast on Urugu. Haven't done one in a couple of months, but this book is a very, very involved book. It's a very complicated book, especially if you don't read much. But it's so essential in explaining white thought, white behavior, really European thought, European behavior. And so, that's why I elected to do a podcast explaining Urugu. And I just have to get back into it. But definitely, I recommend you get Dr. Marimba Anai's book, Urugu, and also Dr. Francis Chris Welsing's The ISIS Papers. Two essentials to understanding white people and how they view you. Now, you see with the election of Donald Trump, it has become painfully clear just how lost we are as a people when it comes to racism and understanding that white people collectively intend to harm all non-white people, especially black people. So I'm going to use the barbershop to go over concepts in my book because this stuff can't be repeated enough. We have to get a much clearer understanding of racism because if we do not, we will not survive as a people. Now, on to today's topics. Before I get into roles, I want to address identity. In the mainstream culture, they are toying around with identity. Gender identity is up for discussion now. Should we identify ourselves by our gender? Should we even acknowledge it? This is the question being asked. White people currently dominate all non-white people on the planet, including you. They've done so for the past 5, maybe 600 years now. They have the luxury of experimenting with these kinds of new ideas and thoughts on culture. You don't. Let me say that again. They have the luxury of experimenting with these kinds of new ideas and thoughts on culture. You don't. When you are, when you're unclear about your basic identity, you are not clear about your core function, your core responsibilities to your people. When we are not clear about our core functions or responsibilities, we will not be most effective at countering racism, white supremacy. Remember, folks, this is about countering racism, white supremacy, developing a code. This is why I suggest picking up Nellie Fuller's book. We have to develop a code. And when we're not clear about our core functions or responsibilities as men and women, we will not be most effective at countering racism, white supremacy. We need to establish roles because we need to collectively use our energy and time as efficiently as possible. And despite the fact that this point is rarely articulated, if at all, there are certain roles that must be filled in maintaining a people's existence and prosperity. For example, you need security. Who are your fighters? You need to continuously advance in knowledge so that problems will continue being solved. Who are your teachers? You need good relations with other peoples. Who are your diplomats? How will the next generation continue on a culture of excellence? How will they continue on a culture of excellence? Who are your gatekeepers to culture? These roles, in addition to other key roles, must be filled out. But we as Black people have not seriously thought about our culture because we have a slave mentality. And we depend on white people to take care of these responsibilities. We will, as the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, do for self, or we will continue to be inferior, period. Now, here's the tricky part. How do we establish who does what? In my book, I recommend that roles be determined by gender, skill, and interest. There are a couple of roles that must be gender specific because nature dictates so. Security, security, hard labor, childbirth, and early child rearing. Men have traditionally been responsible for security because men are generally bigger, stronger, and faster than women. Therefore, men should always be at the forefront of security concerns involving any kind of physical action. This naturally lends itself to the idea that any kind of hard labor, lifting of heavy equipment, tasks requiring enormous uses of strength and energy, whether directly or indirectly, should be left to the men. Any proud, self-respecting man wants to protect his family and community, and he wants to make life as easy as possible for his women. This is core to the identity of a healthy man. So, ladies, take note. Expect your man to do the heavy lifting. Expect him to hold the door for you. Expect him to do the best he can so that you sweat as little as possible. And appreciate him for this. Now, I don't think I need to explain much about the specific roles of women. Obviously, women give birth to the children. But one thing I will speak to in relation to this is the actual delivery of the children. I consider letting white people in their medical institutions bring our children into this world, letting their hands be the first ones that touch our babies, letting their faces be the first, their racist faces be the first ones our children see, more evidence of our collective slave mentality. Like the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, let's do for ourselves. We can create an industry for ourselves right now. Black women need to develop, a sisterhood. You all need to develop a sisterhood and stop all this unhealthy competition amongst yourselves and work to ensure there becomes a point in time where black women go to their sisters, other black women, to have their children delivered. Midwifery must be taken very seriously, particularly by black women. And this is something that women should do as a way to begin rebuilding their relationships amongst themselves. The last gender-specific role is early child rearing. And I am putting emphasis on early, for both parents must be proactive in rearing from birth to adulthood if the child is to be whole. However, the consensus, even amongst the crackers, because I know a lot of you don't do anything unless there's some type of European endorsement. So the consensus is that the strongest connection at childbirth is between mother and child. So naturally, the mother must be the primary child rearer during the early stages of the child's development, with us men playing a supporting role. This must not be looked at as an afterthought, like how Europeans view it. The greatest responsibility is parenting. The greatest honor is motherhood. This is how we need to look at it. Don't look at it as a distraction like white people. Don't put your miserable careers before your greatest responsibility. I'm talking to men and women now. The children are our most valuable resource, and we must act accordingly. Now, these are the roles that should be gender specific just based on logic. I may be leaving out other gender specific roles, so get at me. Remember, my Twitter handle, @Cobra_org. My email is cobra.org@mail.com. Or let's start the conversation. Hashtag racism is white supremacy. And let me say a few more things on this. We must work to eliminate European ideas of male superiority and the assigning of higher, lower values of worth towards gender and roles. Men and women complement each other. One is not better or greater than the other. So, men, there is no head of the household. That is a European idea. You are sharing the household with your significant other. That is why she is your significant other. This is why roles are so important, but also underlying those roles is the idea that no role is greater than any other role. No person is greater than any other person. We are all equal because we are all humans. And we must take this idea, to heart, period. It also follows that roles should be equal. There are no roles that are less than or greater than. They're equal because they all must be done. And one more thing, too. That is that, I covered the gender specific roles. But obviously, there are millions and millions of other roles that must be performed. How do you determine who does what? Well, I gave you the gender specific roles, but it's like I said earlier on. Roles need to be hashed out based on skill and interest. Now, as a man, if you know you are prone to spending your money like a slave on some Jordans to compensate for your perceived self-worth, if you, as a black man, know that you're prone to just wasting money, not saving, then let your significant other handle the money. Even if that means asking for an allowance, absolutely. Why? We're talking about doing what is necessary to make relationships work. And when black relationships work, racism, white supremacy is being countered. In the system of racism, white supremacy, black relationships are not supposed to work. Hell, you're supposed to be confused as to what a black relationship is. You're supposed to even be confused about what the hell you are. Are you a man? Are you a woman? Are you a she-man? Who's responsible for the security? Because if you're a she-man, more than likely, you're, what traditionally makes up the thinking of a man is not going to be in you, including the value that men inherently have in feeling a sense of pride to be able to protect his woman, to be able to protect his community. That stuff is probably gone if you're confused and you're some she-man walking around somewhere confused about, who you should be. And, let me throw this out there. This is not hating on people that, God has created us all different. There are definitely individuals out there, they say that they feel as if they're a woman, but physically they're a man. Well, this can happen. Any type of human experience one can conjure up, it happens. And, because if, and it's meant to happen. I don't think God makes mistakes. So if people are saying that, hey, you see me, I'm my appearance is as a man, but I feel like a woman. It's not right for someone else to say, well, I don't believe you, or, well, no, because God doesn't do that. God didn't make you that way. You don't know enough about God to make those kinds of judgments. But what we do know, are some basic things. And one of those things that we know is that God creates us as individuals. And so we're all different to a certain extent, obviously, but we're all different. All right. So there's enough room in that difference for people having these different experiences that may not be the norm. So you have to take that into account. So remember, There are no roles that are less than or greater than. They're all equal because they all must be done. And there are so many other roles that need to be filled. Let's use our natural talents in determining who should be doing what within the household and within the community. All right. Be right back.
Anything that has show-off value. Stop trying to attract attention to yourself by showing off. Because once you get everybody's attention, what are you going to do with the attention that you got? That's a logical question. Remember, I keep saying all problems can be solved through the process of questions and answers.
Yes.
So you should ask yourself, why are you trying to get people's attention? And what are you going to do with the attention that you got once you get it? In other words, if I'm standing on a street corner and I say, hey, everybody look at my hairstyle. I want everybody, get out of their cars. Park them somewhere and come back and take a look. This is me. I just got a new hairstyle. I want everybody to see my hairstyle. All this stuff that you all are doing, you're wasting your time. Come and look at me. Come and do something constructive in your life. Do something that makes sense for once in your Negro lives. Come and look at me, Neely Fuller. I'm standing on this corner, and I just got a new hairstyle that nobody in the world has ever had. So you need to learn from this. You need to straighten out your lives by looking at me and my hairstyle. Now, so the people come, and they assemble by the thousands, and they look at me and my new hairstyle, or my new tattoo, or my new angle that I use when I sag my pants. I am getting people's attention.
Yes.
So the question now is, now that I have everybody's attention, what is supposed to be what? The constructive result.
Okay.
I should be able to answer that question.
Yeah.
How has this contributed to making a betterment of solving their problems for the rest of their lives?
Okay.
Victims Guaranteed Qualification, VGQ.
You got to. I'm here to tell you that the only way you're going to stop police brutality is you got to stand up and be brutal with this damn beast. You got to step to this cracker or it will never stop.
Victims Guaranteed Qualification, VGQ.
And another thing, when you say integration, it comes under intermarriage too, right? All been together.
Right, sure.
And I'm sure no intelligent white person watching this show, or no intelligent white man in his or her right white mind, want black boys and black girls marrying their white sons and daughters, and in return introducing their grandchildren as half-brown, kinky-haired black people.
I wouldn't object to that.
Well, you wouldn't, but a lot of them would.
Well, I'm sure a lot of people. No, this is the point.
What I'm trying to say is this. You don't have it. You say you don't. You don't have it. You really ain't gonna have it. You on the show and you got to say that. But
that's not true.
Why would you want to do that?
Because I don't think I'm any different from you. You see.
Yeah, we're much different.
I think society's made us different.
You know we're different. We all together.
Society's made us different.
No, not society. God made us different.
No, we're just human beings. He made all of us.
We all listen. Bluebirds fly with bluebirds. Red birds want to be with red birds. Listen. Tell me when I'm wrong. Pigeons want to be with pigeons. Tell me when I'm right. We should have more. They don't have intelligence, but yet they stay together. We should have more intelligence than them, right? Buzzards are with buzzards. Buzzards are with buzzards. Bluebirds are with bluebirds. They all are birds, but they got different cultures. The eagles like to hang out in the mountains. The buzzard like to fly around the desert.
Well,
the bluebird like to fly around the trees and the grass.
There'd be certain problems a buzzard mating with a sparrow, wouldn't there?
What?
There'd be certain.
Right. We have the problems too.
No,
I don't see no black and white couples in England or America walking around proud, holding their children.
That's because society...
And going out.
That's society's fault. We've got to educate people around it.
Well, life is too short for me to be raised catching hell for something like that. I'd rather go and do my own. I have a beautiful daughter, beautiful wife. They look like me. We're all happy, and I don't have no trouble. And I have no trouble. I ain't that much in love with no woman to go through all that hell. Ain't no one woman that good. You understand?
I understand. Yeah, I do understand. I understand. I think it's sad that
it ain't sad because I want my child to look like me. Every intelligent person wants his child to look like him. I'm sad because I want to blot out my race and lose my beautiful identity. Chinese love Chinese. They love the little slanted-eyed, pretty brown-skinned babies. Pakistanis love their culture. Jewish people love their culture. A lot of Catholics, they want to marry a number of Catholics. They want the religion to stay the same. Who want to spot up yourself and kill your race? You a hater of your people if you don't want to stay who you are. You shame what God made you. God didn't make no mistake when he made us all like we were.
I think that's a philosophy of despair.
Despair.
I really do.
It ain't no despair. Number one, can't no woman. Let me tell you something. I want to tell you. Listen, no woman on this whole earth, not even a black woman in Muslim countries, can please me and cook for me and socialize and talk to me like my American black woman. No woman, and last is a white woman, can really identify with me and my feelings and the way I act and the way I talk. And you can't take no Chinese man and give him no Puerto Rican woman and holler about we're in love and you emotionally in love and physically, but really they're not happy because she's gonna hear some Puerto Rican music, he's gonna hear some Chinese music, and they're gonna be clashing all the time. It's just nature. You can do what you want, but it's nature to want to be with your own. I want to be with my own. I love my people. That's all. I hate.
Well, I've heard people say, in fact, a person told me some years ago, said, Fuller, you're flying blind. You're wasting your time. The race problem cannot be solved. It can only be discussed. And so I thought about that because I take into consideration everybody's statements, and I should. And I said to myself, if the race problem can't be solved, there's no point in discussing it. I mean, just resign ourselves. But then I wouldn't have written a book on counter-racism if I didn't think this race problem could be solved and could be solved swiftly. It's just a matter of pushing the correct buttons. And I tried to tell what buttons to push in the book that I have written. And I try to do it on the air, simply by the process of what? Questions and answers. Because all problems that's made by people can be solved by people through the process of what? Questions and answers. Because every question has a correct answer. No such thing as a question without an answer. And there's no such thing as a problem that can't be solved that's made by people. If people made the problem, people can solve the problem. But what it is, black people have a culture that's not designed to solve problems. We have a culture that's designed to actually glorify the problems that we have and to make new problems. Truth be told, we don't have a counter-racist culture. And I have tried to write in my book, because what is a culture? Culture is nothing but what you do. And we are not doing the things that will solve a problem called racism. We're simply not doing it. Why? Because that's not our priority. We have what we call a black culture priority, and it's mostly to glorify what we have already done and what we are doing now. And it's not worth 2 cents. Why? Because it's not working against the system of white supremacy. That's why.
Yeah.
It doesn't work.
True that.
We need a more sophisticated culture, a counter-racist culture.
Welcome back to the show. Again, I love to hear comments from you guys, and I do respond to your comments. My email is cobra.org@mail.com. My Twitter handle is @cobra_org. And also, let's start the conversation about racism is white supremacy. Hashtag racism is white supremacy. There, if you want to comment on the show or any ideas on thoughts on, what I said, or maybe you have something to add to what I said, do it there. All right. That's the place for that. I want to conclude by making a few comments on the movie Get Out. I'm about to get up out of here, but I did go and see the movie Get Out with my wife this week, and I recommend this movie to all black people. If you haven't seen Get Out, go and see Get Out. And usually I'm not one to, we don't go to the movies often. The movies are expensive. And to be quite honest, a lot of the stuff that comes out of Hollywood is very, very shitty. It's not good. It's all racist. All of it is completely racist. And it's just propaganda. And it's expensive. It's a waste of money. And it's not constructive, especially for black people. But I will recommend the movie Get Out because it's a great way to learn about white people. A very introductory kind of a way to learn about white people if you're paying attention. Now, on the creative side of things, the movie is a good movie. It's well written. The story flows. It keeps your interest. The acting is second to none. The director did a really good job, and he's a black guy. And I think it's also of note that he's married to a white woman. But the movie on the creative side of the house, really good. Now, in watching this movie, I was looking for the racism. And the racism is clear as day in this movie, if you're paying attention. The movie does a really good job of reflecting the relationship that black people have with white people, particularly the system of racism, white supremacy. Black people are kind of in a daze when it comes to racism, white supremacy, and we don't understand it, and we are confused. Throughout the movie, this black character, and I'm gonna give my analysis, and I'm gonna try not to give away any spoilers for those of you who have not seen it. But this character is constantly confused, and it's not until the very end that he realizes that these people are mistreating him. And I found that this is a parallel to our experience as black people in the society. On an individual level, many black people are confused about their status as inferior in the system of racism, white supremacy, until something drastic happens, like you get stopped by the police or your loved one gets stopped by the police and then they're shot down like a dog in the street. And then there's a big trial. There's a big trial over, whether the person was innocent or guilty, when common sense dictates that the person was guilty anyway and that there shouldn't even be a trial. And then to add insult to injury, you have a whole bunch of white people sending in donations and telling you as a black person, oh, well, let's just wait. Let's just let the justice system play out. Let's let the justice system run its course. When if you haven't been living up under a rock, you know what that means. White jury, usually not good results for black people. No justice for black people. You see, the movie does a really good job of showing this individual as being confused until there's a crisis, and there's absolutely a crisis in this household at some point. And the movie does an excellent job of building up to the crisis. But the key is that the indications were always there, and he instinctively knows that something is not right, but he consistently pushes that instinct, pushes what he instinctively knows is not being right. He consistently just pushes that away. He ignores it at his own peril. And this is what we do. Also, another parallel I noticed in the movie that we experience as black people, just the relationship amongst black people and white people. In the movie, you clearly see the dominant people are the white people. He has things done to him that clearly nobody will want done to them without their consent. And I won't give particulars, but his wishes and what he wants for himself is not of any consideration to these white people. And this is exactly what happens out in the world today, not just here in the United States, but this is a global problem. White people go around and they do what they want, and they justify it through their interest. Well, we're in the Middle East because it's our interest. It's our security interest. We have to be here to tame all these non-white, miserable, pathetic Arabs who do not know how to run their countries and who do not know how to utilize this valuable resource that us good Christians need, called oil. You see, that's the mindset, folks. And that was plain as day in this movie as well, too. It's very important for us to look at films, to look at documentaries, and not just for the entertainment value, but to learn. I watch a lot of British television. Your host doesn't watch a lot of sports. Your host, I watch the big games, but barely. And I'm weaning myself off of that because that's a waste. But what I do a lot of is I do watch a lot of British television. What am I looking for? Is it because I can directly connect with these characters? Absolutely not. I don't have much in common with, as well as you don't neither. I don't have much in common with British people. I'm a black person. I'm a person classified as black from the land called Africa. And I'm African in my ways, in my thought, in my speech, in my action, in my values, how I look at human life, purely from a traditional African perspective. So no, I don't personally connect with these European characters, with these British characters. However, I do learn a lot about white people and their culture. Even in American films, when you're watching what we would call a white movie. Take, for instance, Nelly Fuller is really good about this. On his show, he talks about The Godfather. He talks about Shawshank Redemption. And he's not talking about the acting. He's not talking about the soundtrack. He's not talking about, the action scenes. He's not talking about the plot. He's talking about what he's getting what he's learning about white people through these movies. And that's what I find myself doing. I watch a lot of documentaries. I watch a lot of British. I watch a lot of British dramas. A lot of them are old. Are older too. And you really learn a lot from the older movies, because the older movies are where white people are not nearly as refined, and they are being honest and truthful in their relationships with people and how they view people and how they view themselves. And it provides insight into how they think. So we must get out of this habit of just exclusively looking at things that have, looking at movies, looking at television shows that have people that look like us. Because you're not learning the full story. You're not getting the full story. You have to go out of your way and look at and listen to, by the way, listen to music that is done by people that does not look like you. And you also have to look at films and television featuring people that do not look like you. More specifically, white people. You need to study white people. Okay? You need to study white people. You need to understand white people. In order to understand racism, you have to understand white people. And, in order to bring about justice, a system in which no one, including white people, no one is mistreated, and those who need the most help receives constructive help. In order to establish that system, you have to end racism. And in order to end racism, you have to understand it. And the whole reason why I do this podcast is because there are too many black people that do not understand racism. We are confused. And the whole idea is to not be confused. All right, folks, that concludes the show. Remember, catch the show every Wednesday, sometimes Thursday from 5 to 6 p.m. here on CobrazInAction.org and the Black Talk Radio Network. And archives of the show are available on www.CobrazInAction.org. This is Cobra number 1 signing off. Until next time, peace.